What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Blazers Uprise Postgame Show powered by BetUS. Today, on a night that honored the life and legacy of Bill Walton, the Blazers lost to the Detroit Pistons 119-112 as they can't make enough plays in crunch time to come back from an 18-point deficit. We're going to have the full game breakdown for you tonight. We're going to talk about the play-in picture as you had the two teams ahead of Portland for the play-in with Dallas and Phoenix. You had those two square off tonight. Also, I'm rocking it's not quite tie-dye, but it's the colorful headband. You know, there's a lot of colors in it, in honor of Bill Walton. So I'm rocking that today. Eric, what's going on, man? How's your weekend been, and how are you doing?
Oh, not too bad. How about yourself? How was your weekend? How was everyone in chat doing?
I had a good weekend, man. I had a good weekend. Got to play some basketball, got to watch some basketball, and get to live stream now. So, it's a pretty full weekend.
But you hate streaming now.
Yeah, or something like that. Anyway, we're going to break down this game, man. There's a lot to get to. The Blazers come home off their 7-game trip, and they struggle. They struggle in this one. They almost sent this game potentially to overtime or almost won this game. They had multiple threes to tie it, including a three by Uprise, who could not make a three tonight. He made one in crunch time and then had another opportunity, wide open three. His shot was not falling tonight, unfortunately. Donovan Clingan got in foul trouble. There was a lot of Blazers in foul trouble as this game was, the refereeing, I'll just say, in my opinion, was questionable. Blazers shot the same amount of free throw attempts as the Pistons, but refereeing was a bit questionable. You had Cade Cunningham doing what Cade Cunningham does, or as Calabro called him at one point, Kane Hunningham, which is a pretty cool name. But Cade, 28 points, 5 assists, did have 8 turnovers. The Blazers were able to force those turnovers, but once again, the Blazers starters just dig them a deficit, and the bench helps make up for it. Scoot and Duop did not play well, so I guess it was more so Anthony getting hot, especially there in the third quarter with some members of the bench in the game. It's been funny lately to look at plus minuses, man, and just see the starters all minus 10 or worse in a game like this, and then Scoot, even though he did not play well at all, plus 17 off the bench. Duop did not play well at all, plus 11. Right, but they got the privilege of being in the game when Anthony Simons really got things rolling. It was Jeremy Grant early who got hot, hit 3 threes in the first quarter. He had 25 points, 6 for 11 from 3, 6 for 12 from the field. Did get to the line 7 times, so a good night for Jeremy against his former team. Good to see him have a good night, but this was just a bad offensive game for your Blazers. They did not shoot well, and despite the turnovers they forced from Cade Cunningham, and they just were not able to shoot a good enough 3-ball, 30% from there, 39% from the field. And that's basically our recap for today. I can get a player of the game poll going. I haven't done one of those in a while, but I mean, it's Anthony Simons, right? So there's really no point to. Eric, what's your first impressions from this game, man? Where do you want to start with this one?
Well, Donovan getting in foul trouble really hurt because we had absolutely no paint presence, get absolutely destroyed, could not score in the paint on them, only scored 30 points in the paint to their 50. So just got completely outmanned in the paint in this game, whether it's Cade Cunningham drives or Duran catching those lobs or whatever it was, just did not have any sort of presence in the middle there. And then you combine that with the Pistons getting 21 fast break points to our 10. So we couldn't get in the paint in our half-court offense and decided not to push the tempo at all either to get easy baskets. So just kind of a bad combination there. So you look at that, and then you look and see that we only shot 30% from 3, and you wonder how we even had a chance to tie the game there at the end. But somehow they clawed their way and made this a battle. But looking at these numbers, I don't think this game should have been particularly close,
Yeah, it seems like the deficit should have been more, just looking at these stats, but the Blazers did make 15 threes. They shot 50 of them. That might be the most threes they've shot in a game all season. 50 is a lot for this team out of 93 shots. So you're talking about I don't know, roughly 60% of their shots from behind the three-point arc, maybe a little lower than that, 58, 59% of their shots from behind the arc. That's not normal for this Blazer team. This Blazer team wants to beat you in the paint. They want to get downhill. Now, they did get to the free throw line a decent amount. 32 attempts is a pretty solid number there. So you look at Jeremy Grant. He only shot one shot inside the arc, but did get to the line 7 times, right? So he was able to get downhill. He shot a technical free throw. He got to the line 3 other times. But this was just not your typical Blazer team that wants to get downhill and punish teams in the paint. And also, you look at the fast break. You turned him over 14 times, which is like a little bit lower, but only 10 fast break points. You got to be able to get out and run. And Eric, I think like this game is a perfect example of how badly this team needs Deni Avdija in order to live up to the identity that they have tried to instill, right? They want to play fast. They want to attack the rim. They want to play gritty defense. And when the Blazers got Deni Avdija this offseason, I said, you know what, that's a good guy to go out there and get, even if you feel like they gave up a little bit too much in terms of asset value with the 2 picks they gave up. Bringing in Deni Avdija can really help you set a culture and really help you push towards the identity where you got guys that'll make smart passes, you got guys that'll play defense, you got guys that'll get out and run and push the pace and really try and get to the rim. Without Avdija, this team seems to settle for a lot worse shots in situations where maybe the ball ends up in Deni Avdija's hands and he's able to get downhill and get to the line or collapse the defense and kick out and really spark some of their ball movement. And then this team is not pushing in transition at all right now without him. 10 fast break points is abysmal, absolutely abysmal. And the pace is just different. The energy is just different without him. And Avdija missed the 3 games before the Blazers went on that 10-1 streak, and the Blazers looked awful. And then Avdija came back, looked like a completely different team, and went on a legitimate run over an 11-game stretch. Without him, this team is looking more like the team before that stretch, and it's clear how valuable Deni Avdija is to this team right now because, you know, you can blame a lot of these struggles on Chauncey. I'll phrase it like this. Deni kind of, I got to explain this more than I want to, but basically you got a team that doesn't run enough. Chauncey needs to hold these guys accountable and get on these guys more to run, I feel like. But when Deni's in the game, they run. They run more. They play with a lot faster tempo on their own, right? In the half court, when their sets break down or they're just playing iso ball, Deni is a good piece to have on the floor that can take guys one-on-one and really make things happen, collapse the defense, kick out to players. It's not good offense, you know, to be completely stagnant and ISO heavy, but having a player like Deni Avdija really helps you out when things break down or you just have nothing going offensively. And he actually gets downhill, gets to the line, gets to the rim. It feels like right now, without him, when the Blazers aren't running much or they're getting stagnant, a lot of the shots where Deni would be trying to push it into the interior, right, get points in the paint, get to the free throw line, collapse the defense and kick, a lot of those possessions is just Scoot dribbling around for 10 seconds or Anthony Simons dribbling around for 10 seconds and then somebody shooting a step back contested 3 or just settling for perimeter shots. And I think it's a stark difference between this team without Deni and this team with Deni, where without Deni, they just settle, man. They just settle for some crappy shots. They don't really, they can't drive the same way he can. They can't score through the defense the same way he can. And then when they try, it doesn't look good. I think this game is the perfect example of how valuable Deni is to this team being competitive.
And when you have super physical defenders like Asur was just hounding Anthony and Scoot at the beginning of this game. Holland comes in, Schroeder comes in. They try to do the same type of thing. Just super physical with those 2 ball handlers. Not having that guy like Deni who can run the offense and just not force those guys to dribble up against that pressure every single time down the court. that really hurt tonight. I thought, especially early in this game, when we just could not get into our offense very well, and Detroit was just manhandling us on defense. And usually we have Deni to kind of take over that offense, bring the ball up. It's a lot harder to hound him that physically because he's so big. But like, yeah, I thought that was maybe even more so than the fast breaks early on in this game. That was a huge thing missing from our lineup, was just someone else who could bring the ball up against that pressure and create some offense.
Yeah, man, and I'll put it this way: like, it doesn't, not having Deni doesn't excuse some of the shots the Blazers are getting and some of the half-court offense they're running right now, right? Deni just makes it look not as bad, and Deni is able to make things happen out of that where it looks better. But that's why even when the Blazers were playing really, really well, I never once became more bought in on Chauncey as a coach. Just because the X's and O's stuff. I mean, he's a culture setter, like players coach type of guy, which maybe is kind of the right guy that the Blazers need to start off a rebuild. But going forward, if they want to be more competitive, they need to have a better offensive system. They need to have more offensive structure. And Chauncey just has proven to me that he's not the right coach. And even when they were winning some of those games, a lot of it was with defensive effort and them catching teams on the second night of a back-to-back. But also, you have Deni who can just go coast to coast, 1-on-3, and get an and one out of it, right? Or if you give the ball to him in the half court, he can be super crafty around the rim at 6'9", and he's strong as well. He can make something out of nothing. That doesn't excuse that the structure is pretty, like, nothing, the structure, there's not much there. But then he makes it look better, right? So that's the thing, is people love, when they talk about coaches, to sit there and say, look at the injuries, look at the players he has on the floor, right? He didn't have Deni in this game, right? So that should excuse Chauncey. A lot of people view it that way. I don't view it that way. I think Deni makes our offensive problems look better, but those problems still have existed. It's why the Blazers are a bottom 10 offense on the season. Yes, some of it is roster. Yes, of course, if you got players that'll make more shots, you're going to make more shots, right? But how do you get those shots? What are you running offensively? Are you making it easier for your guys through your system? I just don't feel like the Blazers are doing that right now, and I think without Deni, it's just even rougher.
Why are you shooting 53s when you're shooting 30% from three, that kind of thing. But Daw asks, so this is how Portland played like last season?
Yeah.
Do you think that this is how they played last year?
I mean, offensively, I think it's very, very similar. They did put 112 on the board, but why did they put 112 on the board? Because Anthony started hitting a bunch of tough shots. That's literally Portland from last year.
Yeah.
And Grant made threes. That was literally the recipe last year, yeah.
Yeah, well, my thing is, it is basically the same as last year. I mean, like you said, Scoot didn't play great this game, but his development into like an actual rotation player is, I mean, that's more of the difference. Why, if it looks a little better this year, and Sharp, obviously, I mean, you can question some of the stuff, but like he's definitely getting better in offense, at least offensively. Once again, not necessarily in this game, but. And then Tamani's been better on offense and stuff like that. So even without Deni, you do have some slight growth that contributes to maybe why we're a little closer in some of these games or have a better record than last year. But yeah, I do think offensively we're still in that one possession where, like, you mentioned like the ball handlers dribbling around a lot. The one where like Scoot drove in and then like kind of fumbled the ball and then dribbled out and like basically dribbled the whole shot clock and had to take like a step back three at the end. It's like, what are we running there? Like, what was the play? Or like, what were we trying to accomplish with those plays? And like, I keep thinking that like a lot every time we see there was a play at the end of a quarter where we just basically let Anthony dribble out the clock and take a tough sidestep three. It's like, okay, like, is that the best offense we can do? But that's what it's been like for a long time for the Blazers. And so I think you're right that Deni does. I mean, he just puts pressure on the defense with the way he can get downhill and the way he brings some physicality. He'll body you and create some contact and stuff. And you can't necessarily play him the same way you play an Anthony or a Scoot right now. So, it's different with him. But I don't like the reliance on one person being in the lineup. Like, we should have counter actions to all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I'll kind of talk about Ant and Scoot in the same vein here, just in regards to like some of the things they have to try and create out of nothing in the half court, right? Scoot's handle just seems like he's been losing the ball a little bit more. He did a really good job of improving that lately. Past couple of games, he's struggling with that a bit, but also a lot of the times it's like, man, he's trying so hard to create something off the dribble because their offense has nothing else. Nobody's moving. Everybody's standing around just watching him, and it's like he has to create. And defenders are getting out on him a little bit more now when he has the ball in his hands. So it's like, all right, yeah, try and get to the rim. But there's just possessions where like he's dribbling a ton. He's dribbling too much. Same thing with Anthony Simons. But it's what I always said for Anthony Simons. I think it applies to Scoot Henderson at times lately is, man, if you got 10 on the shot clock, you got the ball in your hands, everybody is standing around watching you, waiting for you to do something, like, what other option do you have other than to try your hardest to create something no matter how many dribbles it takes, right? And I feel like we're seeing a lot of that without Deni, where you have Ant, where you have Scoot, basically just trying to go one-on-one and create something. And Scoot, I mean, that's not really his game yet. He's 21 years old, right? Hopefully it will be his game one day. Ant is a more natural one-on-one scorer. So that's why you can have a game like this where it's like, oh, Ant, 14 for 26. He put 34 on the board. You know, Scoot has his flashes, and I think his flashes are enough to have hope long-term that he can be somebody that can consistently create something when he is forced to, when there's not much going on, but he's not there yet. So you've seen him struggle a bit. He had 3 turnovers, only 2 assists, was 4 for 14. I think some of that was the shot. You know, he did get to the line 7 times. He was 3 for 8 inside the arc, which isn't good. He had a layup that he definitely should have finished, that he has been finishing this year, that he missed. Like, it just wasn't a good game for Scoot. And it was a great game for Ant, especially driving. He was 10 for 13 inside the arc. That's really efficient, especially for Ant. But a lot of the process with those two guys right now is like, man, those guys just got to dribble around until they can figure out something to do, because you just don't have much movement right now. It seems like they're playing out. Like, they're not running sets even more right now, which is very strange. And like I said on the last post-game show, at some point in the last broadcast of the previous game, I forget if it was, I think it was Holton said, yeah, this is the first time they've run a set in a while. So even the broadcast has noticed it, where it doesn't seem like they are playing with much structure. And they didn't earlier this year, but it almost seems like they're playing with even less structure right now, which doesn't make any sense to me. So, you know, people will always see somebody dribbling around a bunch where it's like, man, this dude is just isoing and dribbling the air out of the ball. But you see it happening with Scoot, you see it happening with Ant. Like, what else are they supposed to do if you're not running much structure? There's no options for them. That's really the only thing they can do. So, I think that's a problem that hopefully will get fixed with the next coach. And that's also a thing where Deni, with how big and physical he is, he's able to make quicker decisions and able to just kind of drive at guys, where Scoot and Ant really have to create some separation because they're smaller. So with Deni on the floor, when you have nothing on, you toss it to him and he'll just drive at his guy, bump a guy, draw a second, and then kick it out, make something happen quickly. Without him, you know, it's a lot more relying upon small guys, small guards that have to create a lot of separation in order to make things work, and therefore need more dribbles or need more time to create their shot, it feels like. So I think that's the problem right now. It's funny because I said they put up 112 as if it was a lot, and Colt's like, yeah, that's not a lot. Colton Chat said it's not a lot. Yeah, it's not a lot, but we've seen this team struggle last year, and occasionally this year, we've seen this team not even be able to get to 100 points. So, they scored 112. That might have been their average last year. I don't even remember. But there's just a lot of work that needs to be done offensively. You have a great shooting night from Grant. Simons goes on a heater, but, you don't shoot the ball well. I think some of it is the shots, and some of it is like Uprise didn't make threes today. He got some good looks. So it's some good. It can be both. It can be both. Some of it's they missed some good looks. Some of it was they're not getting good enough looks, and their offense is not producing good enough looks on average. It can be both those things. Those things don't contradict, right?
Well, you're settling for those.
Yeah, too. I mean, there's a reason you shot 53s in this game. Let's just say that.
I have a question for you regarding Scoot. Do you feel like his ball handling is like his decisions to attack have become a little more hesitant than they were a few weeks ago? It seems like he's kind of like back to being in his head a little bit. I don't know if like him being kind of taken out whenever he does something bad lately, or like if that's starting to mess with his head again or something. But like it seems like when he was starting to get really good, it felt like his decision making was becoming really quick, and he wasn't hesitating at all. He was attacking. He knew what to do with the ball. Now it feels like he's a little bit unsure of himself again at times, and it's leading to him kind of being loose with the ball again.
No, I agree, and this is why I don't think they can go into next year bringing him off the bench. I feel the same way with Sharp, too. Sharp struggled tonight, but he had been playing pretty well as a starter. With Scoot, it's like if you're starting and you're playing more minutes, it does two things for you. One, it gives you more time to like find a rhythm, especially at the start of the game, too, where kind of the game it's finding the rhythm itself. It's a real thing. So you give him more time to find a rhythm because if he's starting, he's more likely to play above 30 minutes. Coming off the bench last game, he played 25 minutes even though he had 22 points and was 8 for 15. Even though he was the player of the game, he played 25 minutes because he's coming off the bench. Coming off the bench makes it much easier for a coach to limit your minutes accidentally or on purpose. I think that's one of the things, but also another thing is just like giving Scoot the keys, I think could give him the confidence to like consistently attack and not feel like he's looking over his shoulder for a sub about to come in for him. And I think that's been maybe part of the problem where he's had some really good moments off the bench. It's not like he can't perform off the bench, but especially after last game where he plays really good and gets basically sat on the bench the last 9 minutes and only subbed in for a 45-second stretch in the middle of it, that has a way of messing with a player's head. And I don't think that's right, especially when he's playing well. It's not even the right decision to win games, but long term, man, at some point you're just going to have to roll the team over to Scoot and give him the keys for a season and see what he gives you. Now, as he continues to get better, I think he'll get more confident in general, no matter if he's starting or coming off the bench. But that's why I've been adamant about starting him, is because I do think it makes it a little bit easier on the mental side of the game for him. So next year, I don't know how the Blazers do it. I don't know what they do. But I think next year with Sharp, with Scoot, you got to roll the backcourt over to them. Like, you guys are going to start. You guys got the keys. Sharp's 22. Scoot's going to be 21, turn 22 in the middle of next season. Yes, they're still young, but they've been productive enough where it should just be, all right, you guys start and take off, like break out. You got ample opportunity. Because right now with Scoot, yes, he's playing, 26 minutes a game in March, but it's just a little weird with his usage and some of his substitutions and rotations, and he plays well and gets his minutes cut in the fourth because he makes a mistake, apparently. Like, it's just weird stuff. So I would like to be past that going into next year.
And in terms of Chauncey, I think, I think the best case scenario is they just let him go to Phoenix or somewhere like that,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
hopefully another team comes calling for him. If the Blazers get the call from a team asking to interview him and they deny that request, I'm gonna be so pissed. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah,
It's
because
it's one thing if those opportunities don't come or something and they just pick up his option and don't want to bring in a new coach yet. I guess we'll have to resign ourselves to that. But like, if they actually deny other teams from talking to him that want to save us from him, that's a little ridiculous, I think.
well, you know what the problem with that is what's been the biggest excuse for Chauncey playing Grant as many minutes as he's playing him and bringing Sharp and Scoot off the bench. The biggest excuse for Chauncey has been, well, he's not coming back next year. He's going to coach to win as many games as possible because he's a lame duck head coach, right? So he's not going to be invested in the future. So if then you turned around in the offseason and didn't even let other teams interview him because you wanted to bring him back, it's like, all right, why couldn't you align with him as a front office? Why couldn't the front office and the head coach align more on a long-term plan where we got to prioritize the development of Sharp and Scoot? And I know Joe Cronin says he doesn't tamper with that stuff, but it's like, as the architect of the roster, of the guy building the team, you and the head coach have to be in lockstep together. So if Chauncey's out here playing Jeremy Grant 35 minutes a game to try and scratch out as many wins as possible before he leaves the organization, and then you basically don't even give him the option of leaving and you bring him back, it just is a little bit directionless to me and kind of contradicts itself. So, that's the thing, is like, if you were going to not let him talk to other teams, why didn't you just tell him going into the year, like, yeah, we'll bring you back next year. Let's prioritize the development of these young players a little bit more. Let's not play Jeremy Grant 35 minutes in games where he's trash and Scoot 25 minutes in games where he's the best player, right? And you could have moved forward. So it's like, you better bring in a new coach next year, because that's the only way you can sit here and explain some of the things that Chauncey has done with the minutes and the rotations.
But Tori, that leads to, but what if the front office was thinking the same thing?
I mean,
they have to win this
then
year
they don't
too.
have a plan. Then they don't have a
Right.
plan. I mean,
But that's what
yeah.
I'm afraid of. Like, because that's the only thing that makes sense, is that, because everything you said makes sense, but like, to me, it seems more like they were in lockstep, and this is what their plan was to try to, not be as bad this year, whether that's so fans don't completely tune out, which is stupid. But like, yeah, I really feel like Cronin, I mean, with his decisions not to trade anyone, is pretty obvious that that's part of the equation, is that he thinks playing some of these guys and having them on the roster gives them a better chance moving forward, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, this was game 65. We have 17 more games left. I can't believe the season's almost over.
I know. I was just talking with my wife about how fast this season's been.
Yeah, this might have been like the fastest season of my life, man. It's crazy. It's crazy. The Blazers are going to go into the offseason with a lot of questions to answer, both from a roster perspective and what is your plan with the coach. Like, are you going to go into next year where he's on the last year? You're going to pick up his option, so he's on the last year of his contract again, essentially. And we just do the same thing next year and we run it all back? Like, are you going to go into the draft somebody 11th overall, a shooter, and that's going to be your entire offseason like it was last year outside of the Deni trade? Like, are you actually going to make a trade outside of just a trade for a player? The thing is they're in a tougher position going into the offseason to make a Deni type of trade, because now instead of having an expiring Malcolm Brogdon, I guess you have an expiring DeAndre Ayton, but that's $15 more million that a team would have to absorb in a trade, which makes things tougher. Or it's like, what are you going to do with Jeremy Grant's contract? What are you going to do with Anthony Simons? Scoot and Sharp are another year along. How long are you going to have Ant taking away potentially from these guys? And that's not even an insult to Ant, right? There's a reason why the Blazers start Ant. There's a reason why he's their number one option, because he's offensively gifted. And there's a reason why he poured 34 points in tonight. He kept this team in the game. He kept this team in the game, got them back in the game after they trailed by 18. That's why he's starting ahead of Sharp and starting ahead of Scoot, who are supposedly the Blazers' future, right? But it's like, at what point do you say, all right, we can't continue to move forward like this where we're limiting Sharp's opportunities, limiting Scoot's opportunities, not giving these guys the keys, right? Not giving Scoot the keys. At what point do you just say, man, we need to start them. We need Scoot and Sharp to have the ball in their hands to really make plays. And having Anthony Simons, he's offensively gifted, but it's hard to rearrange that pecking order considering Simons has been here for years now and is entrenched as that guy offensively for this team right now. We've seen that problem with Jeremy Grant, too, at times, where, like, yeah, he's still going to get 35 minutes, even if he plays like crap. Even if he's the worst player on the floor, he's going to play a ton of minutes because we're paying him this much money and he's our veteran. You just got older players entrenched in their roles in the organization / the coach don't want to upend that pecking order. So it's like we go into the offseason and it's going to be, all right, do they run back the same pecking order next year and do we have all these same conversations again next year, or do they do something to change that? And if they do something to change that, is it because the roster is the same but they change the coach and the new coach comes in and is willing to shake things up? Or do they actually get aggressive with making moves to clear the way for Sharp and Scoot this offseason? That's the only two ways you can change the pecking order. You either got to really shuffle around the roster and trade Anthony Simons, probably trade Jeremy Grant as well. If not, I don't know. Like, you're going to bring him off the bench behind Kamara in Avdija? I don't know. You still got question marks there. But you either got to upend the roster a bit, you got to bring in a new coach that is willing to just shake things up on his own, or you're probably looking at the same thing next year. So I don't really see any other option. I think those are kind of the three paths the Blazers can go down going into next year.
Yeah, the only hope is they kept a similar roster is you find a way for the new coach to have Scoot be more of the lead guard out of everyone, and then utilize Anthony off ball more. You give Jeremy Grant's role, his shots, basically flip him and Sharp right now, and that would be the only hope if there was a new coach. But like, if it's still Chauncey, I think we can throw that out the window. That's the only way. Like, I think they can maybe kind of make it work. But like you said, I don't know long term if that's what's best for anyone involved. So it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't really understand why you'd invest a third overall pick in a guy that you wouldn't try everything to make sure that he pans out. And it feels like the longer you go forward with this status quo going into year 3, I mean, heaven forbid, going into his 4th year, maybe, like, which sounds crazy right now, but I mean, this roster being what it is right now would have sounded crazy a year and a half ago. Would have sounded crazy at the start of this year. Yeah, we made no trades at the deadline. That would have sounded crazy at the start of the year. So who knows? The longer you go forward with this being the status quo, where you're not fully giving the keys to Scoot, the more likely I think it is that he's not going to develop to his ultimate potential or what he could become, because he's not being given the keys and because being brought off the bench. And I do think that has an effect, as much as Cronin and Chauncey defenders will try and tell you that it doesn't matter. So I just don't understand why you would not try and maximize his development. And part of maximizing his development is maximizing his role and giving him the keys once he's shown enough to show you that he should be given that opportunity. It's not to say he's going to succeed or become an all-star with that opportunity, but Scoot at this point has shown you enough that he deserves that opportunity. He deserves that chance, especially with all the improvement this year. So I understand the rest of the year this is probably what it's going to be until they tank, or maybe they get close enough to the play-in. We'll look at the standings in a second. But man, it's just games like these, it's like The offense, not enough structure. You got to change out the coach for that, and you got to switch out the coach for hopefully shaking things up in terms of the pecking order long term if Cronin's going to sit on his hands this offseason. So we're getting to the end of the season where a lot of times when I'm watching games, I'm thinking about, man, what is the offseason going to look like? What is the plan going forward for this team? And it's tough to even
right there.
Yeah, exactly. It's tough to even like view a game as just a game. It just always brings up all these questions in my mind, and then I come on here and I talk about it. So, yeah. Thoughts on anything that I've kind of been rambling for a bit, Eric. Just do you have any?
We got
thoughts?
2 months till Lotto Day, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Basically, yeah, I'm almost there with you, Tori. I still think he could show more and play, like he could develop and do more in a role as a third guard. I don't think it matters as much as you do starting versus coming off the bench, but I understand what you're saying too. Like if he had the full keys and didn't have Anthony there, it would be interesting to see how much further along he'd be by this point too.
Yeah, because unless you think it doesn't matter at all, it's always going to be like, man, what if we did start him then? Like, yeah. What if we waited too long? And his stats this season are much better as a starter. It's a small sample. It's 9 games compared to 47 off the bench. But in 9 games as a starter, in 31.6 minutes per game, Scoot averages 16.2 points, 3.3 rebounds, and 6.8 assists. 6.8 assists, has a greater than 2-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio with a 61.5 true shooting percentage. As a reserve, coming off the bench, that true shooting percentage goes down to 54.1%. His minutes go down from 31.6 to 25.5. His points go down from 16 to 12. His assists go down from 6.8 to 4.9. So when he has started, he has been better, statistically. And he's had some of his brightest flashes when he started, and he's looked the most confident when he started. Mm-hmm. It's not to say he hasn't had games where he's looked really confident coming off the bench, right? Because everybody wants to think of everything as black or white. If you say he looks the most confident as a starter, that means, oh, he's not confident as a reserve. That's not true, right? Everything's not black and white. At the end of the day, it's like he looks like he's his most confident as a starter. He's shown some of his brightest flashes as a starter. Statistically, he's been better as a starter. I can't ignore all that. At some point, you got to start him and hope that continues to play out that way, right? So, 16-7 as a starter, man. We would have absolutely loved for him to have that production on the season.
Yeah.
Going into this season after his struggles last year. 42% from 3 and 48% from the field, 61.5 true shooting percentage. That would have been absolutely amazing going into the season. But the thing is like, yeah, he just does that as a starter in a small sample, and then as a reserve, he's a little bit worse, but has had some good moments. So, I don't know. I think you got
39-point game does skew it a little bit with a 9-game sample size, but I mean,
but also it's like, yeah, did he have that 39? He wouldn't have had that 39-point game if he didn't start. So, yeah.
See, like I said, I'm pretty much there with you. I would just, I would love to see, and I know, like you said, confidence issues, and I haven't brought this up. It feels like he's looking over his shoulder now, like kind of unsure again. But like, to me, I want to see, like, because if you're truly a good player, I think you can succeed in either role. And I want to see Scoot just be like, screw this, I'm going to make you, like, without a doubt show that, like, he deserves to be starting. Not,
I mean, yeah, but production isn't just a decision.
Right, I know. But, like, I want to see him more, like, figure it out, like, how to play this way. Because then you could say, like, because I don't want the argument to be, I want to see what he can do as a starter versus off the bench. I want it to be, this dude deserves to start, not just be handed something. Right? You know what I mean? Like,
I think he's been good enough this season where it's like next year he deserves to start because he's going to be even better next year. Like, he shouldn't be a bench player next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, this year production wise on the season, is it good enough to be a starter? I mean, it's a good good level of production for a really good bench player. So it's not to say like he's out producing being a bench player, but like my counter to that, Eric, would be, all right, well, when he does do what you're asking of him, like he did last game against the Thunder, he gets benched the final 9 minutes.
Well, I
so it's just like,
agree.
It's just like, it's just a mess, you know? It's like not consistent. Chauncey doesn't consistently reward the players who play the best, and he prioritizes the vets, even if they're playing worse, over the young guys when they're playing better. So, like, you just got to get rid of that problem if you're going to bring Chauncey back. That's why I said, like, you either got up in the roster or you got to change the coach. Right? Yeah. That's, like, the only two things if you don't want the same status quo next year. Because I don't expect Chauncey to change, right? Maybe he would, but I don't expect Chauncey to change. And it's like he's shown that he has a preference towards Anthony Simons, even when Ant wasn't playing well, and Jeremy Grant, even when Grant wasn't playing well. You remember one of the Bjorkgren games, Scoot was out playing Ant, and Scoot got to finish the game, and Ant was on the bench, and it was like, wow, look at that. Chauncey would have never did that. But thankfully, Bjorkgren's coaching this game. So it's just like I think a big reason why you need some change is because of the way it's handled by Chauncey. Not even necessarily anything to do with Scoot's individual talent. It's Chauncey not managing the minutes and the rotation properly and showing that bias towards older players. So that's why you gotta, if you fix that problem and you give Scoot the keys, part of what that does for Scoot is putting him in a position where he's not going to only play 25 minutes if he's the best player on the floor. So,
yeah, but I mean, I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
He should be
we're not arguing
the opportunity.
Yeah,
right?
we're not arguing. I mean, this is just the big picture thing going into next year that the Blazers are going to have to figure out. This is the big question for the offseason, in my opinion.
Because to me, Scoot, Anthony, Sharp, if they're on the team together, they all should get 35 minutes. And a majority of Scoot's 35 minutes should be him as the primary ball handler.
Yep.
Now, if you want to say that has to be starting or whatever, I'll say I don't think it matters as long as a primary amount of those 35 minutes are of him as the primary ball handler. But like, if you disagree, that's fine too. Like, there's no right or wrong answer here. But like, to me, there's no reason why those three. You have three guards. Don't play freaking Delano Banton. What the heck did he do in this game, right? Like, and why are you playing him with Anthony and Scoot, you know, like at the same time? Like, you're playing the three of them. Like, just don't even bother playing him, right? And so, like, I mean, I doubt Delano's going to be back next year because he's a free agent. So, like, that problem won't be there. But, like, you have three guards. You need three guards in any sort of team. Like, whether we get rid of Anthony or not, we need a third guard to take some of the minutes and we need a backup point guard then. So to me, it's like, why don't they do a better job of distributing the opportunities between the three, especially in a game like this where, like I said, the defensive pressure on the main ball handler is so tight. You need two people to be able to handle the ball, and you don't have Deni. So between Scoot, Sharp, and Anthony, there should have been ample opportunities for them to run the show tonight and show what they can do. And it didn't feel like we ran much for either Scoot or Sharp in this game.
Yeah, and I think part of the running the show issue right now is you just don't have enough structure. So, you know, it goes back to that conversation. This is all just a giant conversation about why the Blazers ultimately need to make a change at coach. And Chauncey, he's done some good things this year, right? Just because a coach has done some good things doesn't mean that you can't replace him and see better results, right? It's almost just like, oh, Chauncey did something good. See, like, we should keep him. Because for whatever reason, there's a section of Blazer fans that want to keep the same GM, the same coach for decades on end. You know, it's funny to me. But, yeah, Chauncey's done a good job of, I guess, setting the culture and creating an identity. But also, it's like, man, how much of that is just because Cronin brought in Avdija? Because without him, this team looks a lot like they did last year. So it's like, all right, how much of that even is Chauncey is the question that I had watching this game. So, you can see the difference in Detroit. Last year, everybody said, you don't want to be that team that loses to Detroit because they were setting NBA record for a losing streak. Even Blazer fans said, we have to keep Jeremy Grant because you don't want to end up like the Pistons. Even some Blazer fans earlier this year were saying that. We have to keep our vets. You don't want to end up like the Pistons. Well, the Pistons are 36-29. I mean, they look legit. They are comfortably in the 6th seed. They're not even going to have to deal with the play-in. They're just going to be in the playoffs. So
really good. And
yeah, like that's a team that
State last night in Golden State, then have to come back on a second night and look like this, man. That's a tough team.
I mean, but they look like this every single night. It's not like, they're missing one or two guys and it looks completely different. That's the thing is teams that are legitimately good or that legitimately take a step, they can be missing a DeAndre Ayton or a Deni Avdija and still look somewhat the same. Not be as good, because obviously if you're missing some of your good players, you're not going to be as good, but they play the same way. With the Blazers, you lose Deni Avdija and you don't play the same way. You look completely different. I understand DA provides more offensively than Duop and Donovan Clingan right now, so he helps your offense, but it's like without Avdija and with DA, this team looked pretty crappy, right? And without both of those guys, the team looks pretty crappy, but when they've had Avdija, this team looks much better and plays the way they're supposed to play, and without him, they don't. So I don't really know how to phrase the conclusion that we should all come to based off of that, but I truly think it's more of a Deni factor than anything.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's been proven throughout this year, I think.
Yeah. Let's jump into. Let's see. It was interesting that Chris Murray did not get any minutes tonight.
Yeah.
I didn't talk about him enough on last postgame show. Yesterday I was thinking about it. Because last game he really frustrated me. And I think the game before we focused heavily on him, but last game we didn't talk about him much. Last game he had that drive where he drove in the lane and turned around and threw it right to a Detroit Piston. Just an awful turnover. But he had a play that was one of the most frustrating fast breaks of the year for me. And with him not playing tonight, I almost wonder if it was frustrating for Chauncey too, right? We've talked about Chris Murray's shooting struggles this year. Right now on the season, Chris Murray is shooting 25.9% from 3 and 40.5% from the free throw line. His true shooting percentage is 50% because he's 58% from 2, right? But he's a 26% three-point shooter. 26% three-point shooter. For his career, too. You count last year, too. 26%. There was a 3-on-2 fast break in the previous game that I wanted to bring up on the last postgame show that I forgot to, where he was filling the lane, and instead of running to the rim, once again, 3-on-2 fast break, you should be able to get a layup out of it. Instead of running to the rim, he stopped short of the three-point line and shot a 3 and bricked it. And it was like, why is our 26% three-point shooting forward stopping short at the three-point line to chuck a transition 3 on a 3-on-2 fast break? It was just like, really? And then tonight, Chauncey's been playing Chris Murray pretty consistently. Tonight, no Chris Murray. It's going to be Jabari Walker. It's going to be Delano Banton. And it's also going to be Duop because Jabari's minutes have been coming at the center spot ahead of Duop. This game, Jabari didn't play any center minutes. They basically played him with Duop. So I thought it was interesting that Chris didn't play. He got benched. Now, maybe it's just a one-game thing, but I did think that was interesting, Eric.
Yeah, I didn't even think about Chris Murray tonight. But, yeah.
The only reason I thought about it was because of that play last game. That drove me crazy, Eric. Like, if you're shooting 26% from 3 and you're on a 3-on-2 fast break filling the wing, go to the freaking rim.
Unless you're Jabari.
Well, Jabari, the last couple of games, is Steph Curry.
I know.
Is bigger and thicker Steph Curry.
Yeah.
I mean, my goodness. Well, the last 3 games, because he had that 6 for 6 night against Boston. He was 2 for 2 today. I mean, listen, if he starts making threes, he's He's a solid enough end of the rotation, fringe rotation role player. It's been encouraging to see him knock down some threes. He hasn't shot a ton
As a
this
4,
year.
maybe, not a 5.
Yeah, as a 4. I mean, that's where they played him today, and he made threes.
Mm-hmm.
He was 1 for 6 inside the arc and was 2 for 2 from 3. So now I guess he's a 3-point specialist, right?
To be fair, 1 of 4 of those were on the same play.
He was 1 for 4 on the same play.
Yeah, he missed like 3 straight lay-ins and then got it back a 4th time. And
The other 2 he got blocked. The other 2 he just trying to Euro step. Yeah, man, he's just not athletic like that. So he has to create contact to finish. Otherwise, he's just going to get blocked, which we saw. So, I mean, it's good to see him make
very much when he shoots. So he has that low release point. It's going to get eaten up by shot blockers.
Well, yeah, but like I think it was Stewart blocked both of them. The little shots in the paint, the little Euro step, which is a decent move, but you gotta extend it more and shoot it higher, or you gotta figure something out if you're not gonna jump, man. Because he Euro steps and he doesn't get off the ground when he shoots it, and he's just serving it up on a platter.
Yeah.
So it's a good move, and the thing is like if he was more athletic, he would easily finish that. That's kind of the part that sucks. Is like. The Euro step is a good move if you can jump a little bit off of it and elevate a little bit off of it. The problem is, he's getting to that spot. He's not getting up enough to get the shot over the shot blocker. So that's where it's he can't offensively. He can't be like a paint finisher primarily. He's had some good moments when he can create contact, but he's undersized and shots like those are going to get blocked. So that's why he needs to add the 3-point ball, which he's shown some signs of the past couple of games, which is good.
Yeah, what's his 3-point percentage up to now?
I don't know. It was 33% going into the game because he was, I think, 1 for 4 last game.
Yeah. He had 1 block last game.
Yeah. So it's probably around 35% right now. He's 2 for 2, 36%. Just, super small sample. I could see the Blazers cutting him this offseason. Then he goes to a rebuilding team like Trendon Watford did and plays consistently and makes some threes. And gets more opportunity to shoot them. But.
You were talking about things you think about during games.
Yeah.
You know what I was thinking about during this game?
What were you thinking about?
Well, I was thinking about like our lack of paint presence without Donovan Clingan when he kept getting fouls and having to come out of the game.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking, how pissed off I get watching Robert Williams not play, and to think he was actually playing the game before the trade deadline. We had him in a game playing. We showed that he could be on the court, and he hasn't played a single game. It's just like the freaking Malcolm Brogdon thing last year where he plays right before the All-Star break and then doesn't play again, and no one knows like why. They're not talking about why he's out or whatever. Like this is a huge failure by Joe Cronin not to just deal this guy at the break if we weren't even going to try to play him, or if he wasn't going to be healthy enough to play the rest of the season. We could have gotten value for him. There were a lot of teams in need of a center depth at the deadline, and it drives me crazy, man. I hate it.
What did he hurt again?
Who knows, dude?
Chat, what did he hurt again?
They're just like, well, he's not coming on the trip. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, ankle this time or something. I don't know, but like.
So he's missed 9 straight games.
Thibault hasn't played all year either. Like, there's been no update on
apparently Thibault has a Justice Winslow ankle now or something. I don't know, because apparently his ankle is that jacked up. But it's like
left knee sprain. Saying
left knee sprain. I mean. Yeah. That's the thing, though. He's always going to deal with these knee sprains. It's just like, this is why you deal them. This is why he's not going to play through a knee sprain for a team in 12th place. He would probably be playing right now for, I mean, I could be completely wrong, but like, he's probably going to play through more if he's playing for a team with championship aspirations or a team gunning for, a home court advantage in the playoffs. But no, he's stuck on Portland for some reason. He's only played 2 games since the deadline. He played 8 minutes at Minnesota. That was the first loss after that 6-game win streak. Played 8 minutes. What's funny in that game was he was a plus 16. He was a plus 16 in 8 minutes in a game we lost by 16. Right? And then he misses 2 games, comes back after the All-Star break against the Lakers, plays 25 minutes. We lose by 8. And has not played since. Missed 9 straight games. I mean, I don't really understand why this guy that the Blazers know can't stay healthy and who is proving that right now. He's missed 9 straight games. Why the Blazers were asking for an unprotected future first for that, I don't know. I have no idea. That's ridiculous. Like, if you were getting offered to protect first, take it and run. But that's the thing, is if you bench him the rest of the year, it's only going to hurt his trade value in the offseason. So I just don't really know what the plan is there. That's the thing. There's so many questions this offseason. Like, what's your plan with Robert Williams? What's your plan with the backcourt? Are you going to bring Grant off the bench next year? Like, you got so many weird questions that we have to deal with going into the offseason. This is going to make for a fascinating offseason. But I'm worried about some of the answers that are coming there, man.
Thinking about it, do you wish the Blazers pulled the trigger on the deal that the Hornets got for Nurkic?
Explain that again.
They traded Nurkic first to the Hornets for Cody Martin, Misic.
So like Robert Williams for Nurkic in that first?
Yeah, so we probably would have thrown in some like Banton or someone just to make the salaries a little closer, but
I mean, yeah, I probably would have. It's not that great of a first, but it's just like, are you going to get better? And people say, well, do you want Nurk back? I mean, you could bench Nurk, like, or he could be the backup next year if you trade Ayton. He's just a body at the center position.
I don't know if you've heard Nurk talking, but he's been talking about how he just wants to be a veteran to the young guys on Charlotte right now, and they're really enjoying his veteran presence there right now.
I would absolutely buy Nurk embracing being a veteran presence more than Deandre Ayton. And being embracing of that role.
And for the record, once again, I can't believe we have to say this. It's not that we wanted Nurk back. It was to get an asset.
Get an asset, and then you got a body at the center position where you could trade Ayton and you still have a backup center next year behind Klingon. Like, yeah. Also, Ayton is not 25. He's 26. He turns 27 in 4 months. Matt. And I'll
be 27 next.
I'm so tired of people trying to act like Ayton is some massive contributing piece for this team. His defense has been bad this year, man. His defense isn't good. He doesn't space the floor. He doesn't shoot threes. He doesn't get to the free throw line. He doesn't pass much at all. He averages more turnovers than assists. He doesn't set good screens. His energy and effort is completely inconsistent. Like, there's so many problems with Ayton. I don't even want to have these conversations because he might not play again the rest of the year. But my goodness, man, is like, yeah, he could sometimes score 20. That's it. Efficiency-wise, he's not even particularly efficient for a big man. And that's because he doesn't make threes, doesn't get to the line. He shoots a lot of mid-range shots. Like, I just don't really understand what this love affair is with Ayton's fans, man. Like, the Blazers... Yes,
he went
Ayton
off a cliff when he got injured, according to Ed.
We went off a cliff when he got injured? I mean, let me go see when he got injured. But also, we've had good moments without him this year. Okay? Also, the 2 games before he got injured, we were getting blown out. We were already going off the cliff with him before he got hurt. See, this is like
It's the schedule changing, not him getting hurt.
Yeah, it's the schedule changing, man. He played 32 minutes in a 16-point loss at Minnesota and had 6 points and was a minus 23. And then the following game, when he got hurt, he played 18 minutes and was a minus 12. In a game we lost by 29. We were getting blown out when he got hurt. It was like, probably shouldn't have even been in the game. I forget what point he got hurt, but it was like, we were not going to win that game. We were getting blown out. So we were already going off a cliff. But that's the problem. Is like the schedule changes. We have some hard matchups against well-coached teams, and all of a sudden we look like trash. Ayton plays in them, but he gets hurt a couple games after we get blown out. Oh, that's why we went off a cliff, was because Ayton got hurt. The timing doesn't even match up. The funny thing is we just went on a stretch where we've won 5 out of 6 games without him. But we won 5 games against tanking teams. When we had that 6-game winning streak, those were all home games. A lot of them came against a team on the second night of a back-to-back. Yeah, in a game like this, we might beat Detroit if we have him instead of Duop going 1 for 8 from 3 or whatever he went. Sure. But if that's the bar, Duop, I mean, that's doesn't really mean much. Like, that's just not even true, Ed. It's just not even true. Even if you don't count those last 2 games where we lost before he got hurt, the Blazers won 8 in a row with him, but they also won by 22 at Orlando without him. They won at Charlotte without him, and they lost only by 10 at home against OKC. Right? And that's OKC. So, didn't really seem to be...
They actually played other players instead of...
Yeah. Yeah. So, but like, I don't understand why we're ignoring how many games we lost with him. You remember the start of the year? The Blazers were, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They were 3-8 in Ayton's first 11 games. They were 3-8. Ayton gets hurt, and then the Blazers beat Minnesota by 14 without Ayton. Then they beat Minnesota by 8 without Ayton. And then they beat Atlanta by 4 without Ayton. They were 3-8 to start the season. Ayton gets hurt, and then they win 3 in a row. Right? So that's the thing. We can play that both ways. Like, that's the thing. That's the tricky part about trying to correlate. Yeah, this player, when healthy, this team is much better by the win-loss record. I think you can do that a lot more with Deni, and also you can see a difference in the way the team plays with Deni, and you can see a difference in the energy. At the start of the year, the energy was really poor from Ayton. He was putting up points, but the energy, the defense was really poor. Really poor. Like, he's an okay player. He's paid too much. We got to stop acting like he's what makes or breaks this team. He's not. He is absolutely not what makes or breaks this team. Miles Martin says, since the Raptors got Brandon Ingram, I've been more optimistic about our ability to trade in NBA. Teams are wildly unpredictable. See them have... Yeah, true. I mean, but if they have him next year, it's fine. It's whatever. He's an expiring contract. Marv, you're funny. Eric Olson puts it really well. This team is better with engaged Ayton. The problem is, when will you get engaged Ayton? Exactly. When Ayton's playing hard and really engaged, yeah, he makes a true impact on this team. But he never does that consistently. Hasn't ever done that consistently. That's the problem. And that's the frustration. So, anyway. Enough about Ayton. Did not plan on going on that tangent today. I've just seen a lot of people, we lose a game like this, and it's like, see, we don't have DeAndre Ayton. Like, all right, man. DeAndre Ayton is not fixing our half-court structure of our offense. DeAndre Ayton is not going to fix our defense. The Blazers drafted Klingon for a reason. Anyway, Grant tonight, 6 for 11. Good to see him have a good three-point shooting night. He, in 36 minutes, he did only have 2 rebounds and 1 assist. In Jeremy Grant fashion, he had a lot of points and nothing else. But he did get to the line 7 times, which was cool to see. Because he hasn't been getting to the line at the same rate this year. But good to see him have a good three-point shooting night. But that's basically the Jeremy Grant experience right now is like, is he going to make threes? Yes? Okay, then he might have an okay game. But if he misses threes, he's abysmal. Like, he is truly a three-point specialist. In a game like this, yeah, he had 25 points. Nice. He's 6 for 11 from 3, 6 for 12 from the field. Had 2 boards, 1 assist. Like, isn't that kind of a three-point specialist type of stat line right there? You know? Pretty expensive for a three-point specialist, but had a good three-point shooting game today. Eric, what were your thoughts on Grant?
Well, shout out to my guy, Todd Clark, who watches this shows usually back the next morning. But his theory is that the Blazers were waiting for Jeremy to have a big game and will now possibly shut him down for the rest of the season just to say that he's back and healthy and he's good for the offseason trade.
I think you need to have a couple more good games.
I know. I agree.
Yeah, I'm with that theory. Like, if he rattles off 3 good games in a row,
yeah,
but the Blazers lose, and it's like, yeah, they're not going to make the play-in, then you sit him out the rest of the year and say, see, he really started to turn a corner over those 4 games, because we know Cronin loves 4-game sample sizes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you just got to hope he spaces the floor like he did tonight. The times he drives and just throws up crap, like, it's good when he gets fouled.
Yeah.
And he's efficient that way. But all the other times where he just throws something at the rim, has no chance of going in. And that's our offense. It's really frustrating, man.
Yeah, I agree. Tamani had 5 assists, which was nice to see. 7 points, 5 boards. 2 for 6 from 3. Didn't really shoot much.
Man, we got so many good. Tamani got that look from the corner.
Yeah.
Sharp had a 3. Dwap had a 3.
Sharp's streak is over.
Sharp streak is over. I thought he was going to get it on that quick.
Yeah.
He didn't even catch the ball right. Yeah.
Yeah, he just shot it, man. But his streak's over. Streak's over.
Weirdest streak for a non-good shooting 3-point shooter, man.
I know. 32% 3-point shooter with that streak. But that kind of proves my point. You know how I said, man, he never hits multiple threes in a row. If he hit multiple threes in a row more consistently, he would have had a lot of more over nights in order to shoot 32% on the season.
Yeah.
But he's consistently 1 for 3, 2 for 6, 2 for 7, 3 for 7, 3 for 8, 1 for 5. It's a bunch of those types of nights. There's not many nights where it's he's 4 for 6 from 3, 4 for 7 from 3, 5 for 8 from 3, and then 0 for 5. It's consistently mediocre.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. He just has to make more of his threes, man. He has to find a way to make more 3-point shots. 0 for 5 from 3. The thing is Scoot goes 1 for 6 from 3 to me, and it's damn, Scoot's missing his 3. This sucks. Right? He's been shooting so well. This sucks. It stands out. And then Sharp went 0 for 5. It didn't even really stand out to me. Do you get that same feeling?
Not at all. I think it's more man, that's a wide open 3. That should be cash, and he's breaking them. Man, why aren't you hitting wide open 3s?
Yeah. No, there's occasions where I'm dude, you're wide open. You gotta make that. But I don't know. I feel when Sharp struggles from 3, it doesn't really stick out to me.
Mm.
If you told me he was 2 for 7 from 3 in this game or 2 for 6 from 3 in this game, I would have believed you.
Yeah.
I didn't remember him hitting one, but I would have been oh yeah, I probably just forgot that he hit a couple. There was one, the 3-point shot, he just needs to improve his 3-point shooting, right? He's taking the right 3-point shots. It's fine. It's fine. Hopefully it can improve, right? It's not like he's deciding to miss open threes or miss three-point shots, okay? He just has to put more work in and make his shot more consistent. And that work is going to come in the offseason. Unfortunately, with some of the injuries he's dealt with, he hasn't got enough time to work in the offseason on his shot. So I would like to see a step up next year. I think that's very important for him. There was a stretch in this game. It was an offensive possession followed by a defensive possession that really frustrated me, Eric, from him. Mm-hmm. And it goes to like the two things he can control that sometimes gets a little rough. And the offensive possession, he goes down the floor in transition, and he shoots like a step back, fadeaway, contested 16 or 17 footer, and there was like 17 or 18 on the shot clock. And it was like, dude, you can get that shot at any point. Why are you settling for that this early in the offense? He bricked it. It's like, all right, that's not a good shot. Like, don't settle for that 6 seconds into your offense. Don't settle for a contested 16-foot fadeaway. I know you can make it, but like, try and get to the rim. If not, move the ball. If the ball comes back to you and there's 9 on the shot clock, all right, I can live with that. But not when there's 18 on the clock, right? You gotta be a little bit more patient than that before you settle for that type of shot. If he's hot, okay, I would have been said whatever if he was like on a heater. You know what I mean? It's just in that context, in that situation, did not like that shot. All right, whatever. Then they come back on defense, and I forget who was driving on him. I think it was Schroeder. But Sharp was on his hip while Schroeder was driving towards the baseline. And Sharp, I feel like, could have easily rose up and blocked his shot if he just stayed with him. Instead, he gave up on the play and tried to do the James Harden reach around from behind and poke the ball out and fouled him. And just completely gave up on the play defensively. Right after he shot that 16-foot fadeaway. And it was like, man, that's a perfect example of like where you need to get better. You can't give up on that defensive possession. You can't settle for that type of shot that early in the shot clock. If those two plays happened at different times, they probably wouldn't even stand out all that much to me, and I probably wouldn't have said anything. It was just like coming back to back. It was like, yeah, you can get mid-range shots whenever you want. Like almost nobody can block it, right? So don't settle for that, right? With 18 on the clock. And then don't give up on defense. Do you know what stretch I'm talking about, Eric?
Yeah, I don't know if it was that one or not, but Chauncey lit into him after a certain play. I don't remember if it was that one or not, but Chauncey was like yelling at him to get over towards him, and then he like chewed him out while he was over there.
But like that shot, and then the Chris Murray shot I was talking about last game, is just a couple of the examples of some of the poor shot selection.
Mm-hmm.
A little early in the clock. That's the thing. Is like I want this team to run. They're not even running well, but then when they do run, they're getting a little jump shot happy in transition. Like run the floor and try and get to the rim. That's your strength. You got athletes. You're young. You're quick. Push the pace and get to the rim. If not, back it out. And then hopefully, next year you'll have a coach that when you back it out, you can actually run something legit. Right? That's what the mindset needs to be. It shouldn't be like, oh, we need to play fast pace. All right, I'm going to chuck up this fadeaway contested 17-footer with 18 on the clock. Like, nah. Play fast to get to the rim. If not, be patient, run your half-court offense, and then if there's 5 on the shot clock and you have to shoot a tough shot, all right, fine. I get it.
Reese asked if you'd be happy if his ceiling was Desmond Bane.
Last year's Desmond Bane? Would I be happy? I wouldn't be happy if... The only thing I'd be happy with is if he's a legitimate star. I mean, last year Bane was pretty much a legitimate star, though. He's 24 points per game, 5.5 assists, 46% from the field, 38% from 3. If that's where Sharp peaks, 24 and 5... on a true shooting percentage of 59%, I'll be content, is what I'd say. I'll be content with that. Would I be happy? No. Is that how you'd put it too, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, like 20, almost 24 and 5.5 assists. Like, if he's that level player, I think you take it.
Yeah.
I'd take it right now. Am I like ecstatic about it? No, but like hopefully he's more in the 26, 27 points per game range when he figures it out. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Let's see. What is Chris Murray's future in Portland? Do you think he's a candidate to be dealt this offseason? I mean, he could easily be thrown in a trade. I don't think they have any plans that are specific to him. And then shout out to Dro with a $2 Drono says, Cronin needs to go to Camp Presti. Sell the team. Thank you, Dro.
Yeah. See, Chris would have been perfect as the throw-in in that Nurkic trade we talked about earlier, like just to get rid of a little bit of salary so it didn't go over the tax.
It makes it look a little better on Phoenix's end, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alrighty, anything else from this game?
No, let's get to Tankathon or like
standings.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the plan picture. All right, let me load these real quick. Hold on. These are old standings, as you can tell. There we go.
Phoenix beats Dallas despite Najee Marshall's 34, 10, and 8.
Yeah, my guy Najee Marshall, man. One of the Tory gems right there. I liked him a bit, undrafted. And he's been really good for Dallas this year. He's their new Luka. 1.5 games back, Phoenix is of Dallas. Portland's still 4 games back of Dallas because while Dallas can't win a game, Portland has lost 2 in a row. So you're not making up any ground, man.
And we have to get on a plane right now and go to Golden State and play the Warriors tomorrow night. Yeah, it's brutal schedule, man.
Absolutely brutal. So, good luck on the road against Golden State. Look, they're all the way up to 6 now. So, good luck. You're probably going to lose again. You're going to be, 4.5 back? I don't know if Dallas plays tomorrow. So
and we're running out of games.
Yeah. Yeah, there's 17 games left, man. That's the thing, is Portland needs to win games like this. Portland needs to win games like the OKC game when they're missing 7 key players in their entire starting lineup. Those are the types of games that Portland is going to have to win to make up this deficit. They're not winning them. You look at Sacramento in 9th. The last time Portland beat a team that was in the top 8, right? Because 8 teams from each conference makes the playoffs. The last time Portland beat a team that was in the top 8 of their conference was February 4th versus Indiana. Right? The game before that was Dame's return game on January 28th. So since Dame's return game, they only have one win, one singular win against a team in the top 8 of their conference. Even if you go back before that Dame game, right? Because the Blazers had that 4-game winning streak. You remember that?
Yeah.
That was Chicago, Miami, Orlando, and Charlotte. None of those teams are in the top 8. And then the last win before that was New Orleans. The last win before that was January 4th at Milwaukee. So since the new year, Eric, the Blazers only have 3 wins against teams that are currently in the top 8 of their conference, and 2 of them are Milwaukee, because we get up for Dame, I guess.
Heck, we sweet Milwaukee.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's the Blazers turned a quarter, playing so well. Even amongst all that, man, it's not like they're beating a bunch of teams that are in the top 8, right? Because their 10-1 streak, they beat Chicago, Miami. Miami's not top 8, right? Yeah, they're worse than Detroit. So they beat Chicago, Miami, Orlando, Charlotte. None of those teams top 8. Then they lost to OKC. Then they beat Dame when he returned to Portland. All right, Milwaukee's top 8. But then they beat Orlando, Phoenix twice. At the time, it was these are really good wins. Those teams are... Phoenix is 11th right now, and Orlando is 9th?
Actually, Orlando's 8th right now.
Oh, Orlando's 8th right now? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's 5 times counting Orlando. Because Orlando, I swear I saw them in 9th recently.
Miami's 9th now.
Okay. Well, there you go. My narrative is ruined. Well, no, they're tied for 8th and 9th, so I'm going to just say they're both 9th. Because they're both 5 games below 500. There you go. There you go. Well, I could... See, if I switch it to above 500 teams, then I have to include Sacramento. All right, let's do that for the narrative. Above 500 teams. Teams above 500. Since the new year, the Blazers only have 4 wins. That's in like almost 3.5 months. Or no, 2.5 months. January, February, almost half of March now. That's the problem, Eric. The Blazers don't beat teams above 500. They don't do it. Only 4 wins.
Chance tomorrow night.
Milwaukee twice, Sacramento, and I believe Sacramento was on the second night of a back-to-back, and Indiana was on the second night of a back-to-back, and both those games were in Portland. So, that's kind of the problem. Is like, I don't trust this team unless things are like heavily stacked in their favor to beat teams above 500. And then even when they are heavily stacked in their favor, like it was at OKC or at Boston, they still lose by double digits. So that's why I never got fully caught up in the play-in hype, because the Blazers have a ton of games against teams above 500, and I don't trust them to win those games. They're not good enough to win those games.
Joe Cronin, and convinced himself not to make a move at the deadline.
Well, listen, I'll take him at his word for some reason. That he said that didn't affect their plans.
There's no way it didn't affect.
But he could have easily sat there and said, like, we like what the team's been showing, so we wanted to see it through for the rest of the season or something. You know, and package that in GM speak. He could have easily gotten away with that. He could have easily said that.
But if we lost 10 out of 11 instead of won 10 out of 11, he's sitting there thinking, "Oh, we'll just keep the same team the rest of the season."
I mean, but I don't even think he was sitting there thinking we're going to keep the same team. I think he just has his price, and then his price is too high, and then when teams don't meet it, the potential deal dies, and it leads to him doing nothing.
Yeah.
That's what happened with Robert Williams, because it's not like Robert Williams is doing anything for us right now. It's not like Robert Williams played much at all the entire season for us. But Cronin wanted his unprotected future first, apparently. Maybe the report was wrong. And teams, of course, were not willing to beat that price. So, listen, you got the rest of the month, you only have 2 games against teams that are below 500. Okay? You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games against teams above 500. So if this keeps up, they go 2-8 over the rest of the month. That'll put them at 30 and 45. 30 and 45. Eric, you know what that means? You know what that means? They tank in April.
And I somehow win my bet still.
Yeah. Because then they have at Toronto, at Chicago, versus San Antonio, at Utah. If they tank those games, man. San Antonio and Chicago, those are important tanking games potentially at the end of the season. I think they'll win 4 or 5 more games the rest of the year.
This homestand, Tory, though.
I'll say, yeah, it's a long homestand, man. I'll say 5 to 6. They'll finish with 33 or 34 wins. Where that puts them in the draft lottery, I don't know. That would make them 14 to 16 games below 500. Right now, Chicago's 13 games below 500, so if they play close to 500, you could pass them. And that's a perfect segue into Tankathon. Alrighty, so Portland is a half game behind San Antonio for 9th best odds. They're only, Eric, look at that. That's nice. They're only a game and a half behind 8th. And they're only 5
games. Be happy if they got back into 8th.
They're 5 games behind Philly. If we lost a game to Philly, we'd only be 3 games behind them. That'd be possible. But Brooklyn's hardcore tanking the rest of the year. I mean, your best bet is maybe Philadelphia rattles off some wins, but It's not going to happen. 8th is the ceiling right now.
I can't believe I'm going to lose that Atlanta Hawks bet just because all the other teams suck.
Oh, about them playing into the top 8?
It's just top 8 regular season, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's freaking...
Yeah, because who's the 9-10 right now? It's
It's Orlando and Miami.
Or it's Orlando?
Orlando.
No, it's Miami.
Miami and Chicago, yeah.
Miami and Chicago, yeah. Miami still wanted to go for it for some reason. Good luck. 5 games below 500.
They don't need Jimmy Butler.
This is just weird. Could you imagine, like, earlier in the season? Hey, this is going to be the tanking picture. We're just only going to show... All right, it's March 9th. We're sending you into the future, all right? Your screenshot from the future. You know, let's say we did this the day before opening night. Screenshot of the future, all right? Here's 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th place in the draft lottery, all right? Portland's 10, Miami's 11, Phoenix to Houston is 12, and Dallas is 13. And Portland has no hope of catching Philadelphia. Dude, you could have told me that on my drunk stream, the final stream from the old studio, and I still wouldn't have believed you, even after drinking the MD 2020. I thought you'd appreciate that joke. I'm sad now.
Go back into the past and see our reaction.
Yeah. I'm just reading your comment in chat. Let's just simulate it. Let's just go. 14 is Atlanta via Sacramento. 13 is Dallas. 12 is Houston via Phoenix. 11 is Miami. 10 is your Portland Trailblazers. Boring. 9 is San Antonio. 8 is Chicago. 7 is Brooklyn moving down a spot. Philadelphia's top 4. 6 is Toronto. And 5 is Washington. So you also got Charlotte, Utah, and New Orleans. 4 is New Orleans. 3 is Utah. 2 is Charlotte, which means Cooper Flagg is headed to Philadelphia. What would you think about Cooper Flagg in Philadelphia?
I mean, that'd be really good for them, but I would hate it.
Yeah.
At least the Eastern Conference got top 2. Noah Asengwe, according to Tankathon, is a Blazer.
Yeah, I feel like the upside with him is all just like imaginary. You know what I mean? Like, he's 6'9", he moves well. He's shooting 29% from 3 though. Only averages 1.1 assists per game in 24 minutes. Like, I know he's playing at a decent level, but I don't know. It's all just like, yeah, he has the tools where maybe you could mold them into this in like 5 years. You know? Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I don't know if it makes sense with him, though.
I mean,
he's been pretty productive.
The three-point shooting's not there. He needs to add a lot of weight. I think he's going to get pushed around in the league. He's going to have a hard time driving with any sort of physicality. And he doesn't seem like quick or athletic enough to just use his athleticism to beat guys off the dribble. I just don't really know what he is at the NBA level. Like, yeah, if you develop the guy properly in 4 years, he could probably be a good player. I just don't know what exactly that looks like. I don't even know what to envision for him. So he's tricky for me. Because he is 6'9". He does move pretty decently. He's only going to be 18.5 on draft night. It's just always tough for me when I don't, like, there's guys where they'll show flashes here or there. They're like a long-term project, but I can see the long-term vision, and I struggle with. So
Yeah.
I would not like drafting him at 10. I'll just say that. If you had to pick between Colin Murray Boyles and Asengwe, who would you pick?
Oh man. Um.
Because I feel like we're going to be the floor for Colin Murray Boyles. That just feels like a
Yeah.
Cronin pick, man. He's like the Klingon of this draft. Really good defender. Doesn't shoot. Can pass a
I'm,
little bit. What were you saying before you died?
I mean, Asangwe is gonna be like 2 years younger, I think. So I'd probably take the youth.
He's a year and a half younger.
Yeah.
I,
But
yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. I think they're pretty close in my rankings. I wouldn't have an issue either way. There's pros and cons to both.
I'm warming up the presses for the Knipple jersey. I've started calling him Future Blazer.
Yeah.
I was watching Duke. I told my
Until
girlfriend,
it
I'm
goes
like,
eighth.
he's a Blazer next year. Knipple. Yeah, he's a Blazer next year. That's what I've started saying. So we'll see.
Until we play ourselves out of the Knipple race by finishing.
Okay, then
10th
we get UConn version of Knipple and we get Liam McNeely. Is that going to be their master plan? We got Klingon. What, we get Liam McNeely, and then we try and convince Hurley to come coach
Once again,
McNeely
that's
and
not
Klingon?
happening.
No, you see how miserable of a time he's having this year? UConn's not even ranked. He's like, yeah, probably should have went to the league.
Still have
Listen,
to
we
pay.
got Klingon, we got McNeely. Well, I mean, what perfect chance for Jody to prove that she's not a cheap owner.
He's not doing that.
Perfect opportunity, right? They cut $10 million of payroll by, attaching a second-round pick or two to Matisse Thybulle, and they replace his salary by paying Danny Hurley. There you go. I mean, that's their offseason. McNeely cap-dumping Thybulle with seconds to use the money for Hurley to prove Jody's not cheap.
You joke, but I feel like it's very predictable that they identify one or two things they need, and that's all they target in an off season,
Yeah.
And I feel like this off season is going to be shooting,
Yep.
and they're just gonna like go for a couple shooters and call it an off season. Yeah.
Yeah, like I feel like drafting Knipple or McNeely, especially
Yeah.
Knipple.
It's like the Klingon rim protection of
Yeah,
last year.
and then the Avdija is you make a trade for Cam Johnson.
Cam Johnson, yeah.
But the problem is you got Jeremy Grant,
splash,
and
but yeah,
you can't really like the salary matching is tough. But you know what I mean? Like that just feels like a Cronin type offseason is we get Cam Johnson to come off the bench with Knipple.
Malik Beasley will be our MLE signing.
Yeah. If only he wasn't playing so well that he might make more from Detroit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this could be the offseason. Like, we make an MLE signing and it's a shooter, and then we draft a shooter, and that's our offseason. Next year, if Grant's still on the team, do you think they start him? Or do you think they finally bring him off the bench?
I mean, I would hope they didn't start him, but I don't know. I don't think they would.
You would have to bring him off the bench, right? This fan base might boo on opening night if they're still starting Grant. I would boo. Not Grant. I would boo Joe. I'd sit 5 rows behind him and ask him why Grant's still on the team.
Yeah.
Alex Condon can be our shooter. He's not shooting good.
We don't have another pick, though. Yeah.
I know. Well, if Atlanta... Well, it's not looking like it, but if Atlanta doesn't make the playoffs and we're better than them, then we get the 40th pick. because we get their pick and it's protect. Like, we get it if it's 31-40 is what I've read. Yeah, so I like Condon, man. He's been balling.
Jay Huff for shooting.
He's been balling.
Guy.
Honestly, I would actually really like Jay Huff as a backup center pickup. Wouldn't you?
I mean, it wouldn't be terrible depending on how much we paid him.
I mean, but so I think I forget who this applied to, but this applied to someone recently. And I think if you're trying to find a diamond in the rough in terms of a guy that's been in the league, and somebody explained this really well on Twitter recently, and it's kind of a philosophy that I've had, when I look at guys like per 36, what are they doing? You take guys that on a permanent basis are very productive and like decently efficient, and then you give them a much larger role and stress test them to see if they can keep up that production on a much larger sample. And there was somebody recently that applied to where they didn't start off their career hot, but like per 36, their stats looked impressive, and then they got a ton more role and ended up being a really good player. I wish I could remember the example. But if you look at like a J Huff right now, per 36 minutes, 21 points per game, 42% from 3, 52% from the field, true shooting percentage of 68%. It averages 2.6 blocks per 36, Eric, like in 14 minutes a game. I would absolutely take a flyer on him for, portion of the MLE, $8 million, maybe, and give him 20 to 22 minutes a game behind Klingon next year. And just see if he can keep up that production. Because, like, on a per 36-minute basis, in just kind of the way he plays, he's not the ball handler, but he kind of fills the role of, like, a backup stretch 5, not the best rebounder, but can really score the ball inside and out as a, like a poor man's Naz Reid. But that's the thing, is he's not a household name at all. There's a lot of front court depth there in Memphis. That's the type of player you bring in on a cheap contract, and you just see what they are. Like, you give them more minutes, and if they don't pan out, fine. You signed them for, maybe a 2-year deal with a second-year team option. That's what I give him, like 2 years, $16 million, second-year team option. If he doesn't pan out, you can just decline that team option, and you save the money next offseason. You're fine, right? It's just a 1-year trial. If he's good enough, you can bring him back on that team option second year, and you just see what he can do with 20 to 22 minutes a game.
Mm-hmm.
Like skilled bigs especially. Like another guy that I feel like could be a little similar is Mamu Kelashvili. Right now playing in San Antonio, 8 minutes a game, but has played 40 games. Is averaging almost 5 points per game. Per 36, though. 20 points per game, 10 boards, 2 assists, 1.5 steals, 1 block, 39% from 3, 51% from the field, 71% from 2. True shooting percentage of 65%. It's like, all right, you bring him in, you give him more minutes, even if his efficiency goes down from a 65% true shooting to 59 to 60% true shooting, but he's playing a lot more minutes and shooting at the same volume. That's a really productive offensive player. So that's kind of my idea for the Blazers going into this offseason is try and find a diamond in the rough. I wish I had an example that I could provide you, that because there was one that like legitimized that logic.
Mm-hmm.
Because you need a shooter. You might as well get a backup 5 that can shoot. If you're going to keep Grant and keep the forward position overstocked, if you have a logjam at that position. But the entire point, too, is like with shooting, Eric, you don't need to spend a very high caliber asset to find shooting. You can go sign a Jay Huff or go sign a Mamu Kalashvili for probably pretty cheap. And they can shoot. And Mamu Kalashvili can put the ball on the floor a little bit. Like, you don't need to spend a first-round pick or 2 first-round picks to get shooting if that's really what you're after, if you need a three-point specialist.
But that's what I'm afraid of. They like prioritize it too much and then use all assets for it, you know?
You want to use your asset on somebody that can do multiple things, like your lottery pick on somebody that can do multiple things. I think Knipple can shoot plus do some stuff off the dribble and play make a little bit, so I'm fine with it. Absolutely fine with it. But, if you're just chasing shooting, you can find shooting. And you can take a flyer on guys that are productive beyond just their shooting on low minutes and see if they can maintain that production on a higher volume of minutes. And if that's true, you've got yourself an asset that maybe in the offseason you could actually shop and get something back for. Somebody that you signed that you didn't have to give up anything to get. Right? Like that's how they need to approach this offseason from a free agency perspective. Because you're not going to sign a big name free agent, but you can potentially make a splash. Like
sign anyone.
Yeah, like if you get in ahead of time on a player that's going to become good. Eric Olson says Quentin Post. Yeah, well, I mean, we traded the pick that the Warriors used to draft him. We traded it to him for cash. So that's a funny thing is like if we actually kept that pick, we'd probably be, and he was playing like this for us, we'd probably be sitting here saying like, all right, well, he needs to be the backup center next year. Which is funny. 41% from 3. 8 points per game. In 16 minutes per game. Per 36 Post is 19 points, 9 rebounds, 3.5 assists, Eric. And shooting 41% from 3 is a 7-footer. His defense isn't good, but he's already an impressive offensive big man. He is a 24-year-old rookie. We're not going to have the conversation, though, about the oldest players being the biggest sleepers from each draft. Because he might... Who are the biggest sleepers it's looking like from the second round? Jalen Wells? He's 21. 21-year-old rookie. And Quentin Post, who's a 24-year-old rookie. That's interesting. And maybe Justin Edwards, too. He was undrafted, and he was a one-and-done guy. Because he's looked good. Damn, he's already 21? That's crazy. Anyway.
Yeah, I was just looking at the Blazers cap situation.
Yeah.
Or like roster situation.
Yeah.
In terms of signing a free agent. We have Dwop and Tamani on non-guarantees. Once again, it's going to piss me off if we don't keep Dwop and could have gotten like a second-round pick or something for him.
What if we cut Tamani?
Yeah. Well, the only chance we cut Tamani is to do what the Thunder did with like Aaron Wiggins and
what the Pelicans did with Herb Jones, right?
Herb Jones, yeah. And that's to offer him because, well, he still has 2 years left on his deal, so I think you can go one more year for cheap. But yeah, if you wait another year, the sooner you give him a contract, the more reasonable it might be, type of thing. But I think we can get away with one more year before we have to do that.
Yeah.
But let's just assume we keep both of those guys. That's 13 players.
Yeah.
Not including Jabari, who would be a restricted free agent. And then Banton's the only true free agent we have. So you sign our first-round draft pick, that's 14. That means you have 15 roster spots if or one spot for a free agent if you don't bring back Jabari or Delano. And that if you bring Jabari back, you don't have any spots without moving anyone. So kind of in a similar situation to last year where we don't really have a bunch of spots.
Yeah. You know what's kind of sad to me? This is the first stream where I'm like, all right, I'm ready for the off season.
Yeah.
Normally it's earlier, but like this game and then this stream, I'm like, all right, I'm ready. I'm ready for it to be May. I'm ready for draft lottery. I'm ready for 9 p.m. Blazers Uprise live twice a week. I'm ready for watch playoffs that we're not in. But also Selection Sundays a week from today, so I'm not ready for it yet. Selection Sunday, March Madness. We're gonna have fun talking about that.
Did you watch a ton of college basketball yesterday?
I watched a bit.
Yeah.
I watched a bit. I had
so many good games. Huh?
Yeah, I had my rec game, and then I went to Red Robin, which was fun.
Heiken is saying Thibault might come back this month. Yay.
Thibault comes back for like 5 games. Yeah, might. Thibault might play before the end of the season. So insightful. Is that saying anything? He might come back this month. I don't know. Like, that's not even saying anything. It doesn't even tell us anything. He might not be out the rest of the year.
This month too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Robert Williams may or may not play this year again.
Yeah. And then they may or may not keep him this offseason. In 9 weeks from now, we all have seen the Blazers get the number 1 pick a few hours prior to now. Bro.
We're having a long celebratory stream for that, right?
Yeah. If the Blazers got the number 1... If the Blazers got the number 1 pick, if they got Cooper Flagg, I would be willing to do a 24-hour stream. That's all I'm going to say.
What if Cooper Flagg goes back then?
He's not going back.
We celebrate and then he goes back to Duke.
Stop.
Oh, man.
Cronin doesn't draft him. Cronin drafts Knipple number 1.
I think we have to go back to I might have to give up being a Blazer fan if we got the number 1 pick and then Flagg was like,
that would be so cursed, dude. Because when does he have to decide to go back into May?
I think it's later. It's either it's late May or early June or something. Yeah.
All right. If we get the number 1 pick and then it's confirmed that Cooper Flagg is entering the draft, I will have a 24-hour stream. All right. I'll do it. That's my promise. I don't know what I'll do those full 24 hours. But, yeah, be fun.
Oh, Heiken's saying he's not going to Golden State to practice with the remix as part of his reconditioning. If he continues to progress, it's possible he could play on this homestand.
Seems like a lot of caveats in there.
Can't wait till he starts getting minutes instead of Sharp or something. You know?
God, dude. Yeah, for real.
Man, I missed that Myles Garrett re-signed with the Browns. So it was about money.
He did?
Yeah, $40 million a year. They gave him the bag, and he was like, "Okay, I guess I don't need to win."
As long as you value me as much as you value Deshaun Watson, I'm good.
Yeah. And how are you Seahawk fans in chat feeling right now?
I had a Seahawk fan in my Discord tag me. I'm telling chat. What did he say?
He was crashing out.
He was really crashing out.
I don't know, man. If you didn't want to pay DK 5 years, $150 million, and you got a second round pick from Pittsburgh, which isn't bad. Like, I think you're. And then it came out today that Gino turned down 2 years, $90 million, and then requested a trade. Like, good riddance.
What?
Then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I missed. You dodged a bullet. Yeah,
So you're fine, dude. If you're
we got a
Seahawks
fifth
fan.
for
I might see
Debo, and we're like, all right, that's fine. And this dude was crashing out for getting a second for DK. Yeah, I had the Seahawks fan. He's in our Discord a lot, so he's cool. But he tagged me. He said, you think you suffer as a 49ers fan after the Seahawks traded DK. And I was just like, you've seen a freaking championship, dude. And he said, once, that's it, once. It's like, bro, do you know what I do to see one championship from any of my teams? I'm 0 for 6 in championship games. If my teams make it to the Final Four, so it's like conference championship, right, NFC championship game, etc. If my teams make it to the Final Four, I'm 0 in 14. I did the math. I'm 0 in 14 if my teams are one of the last 4 teams remaining. 0 in 14 on championships. Never seen one. It's like, dude, no, I do have it worse. And the dude was like, dude, you didn't have to cry watching us throw the chance at a dynasty at the 1 yard line. And it's like, bro, I saw the Niners lost off a walk-off touchdown where they were multiple times one defensive stop away from winning a Super Bowl last year. Like, that was torture. That was torture, man. So, yeah, nah. Yeah, I only feel sympathy for myself, Eric.
I mean, I do feel sympathy that Jody owns the Seahawks, too. Yeah.
I mean,
it matters a lot less than the NFL.
They've seen a championship before. More than I can say.
Yeah.
More than I can say. Anyway. Sounds like a lot of championship games your teams have been good enough to make. Not the Blazers or the Mariners. So. I'm just happy it looks like Gonzaga's going to make the NCAA tournament, so I'll get one playoff game this year. You know? Like, that's where we're at right now, man. It is not looking good. It is not looking good. We're going to be like an 8 seed.
Drake punched their ticket today.
Nice, yeah. They might have gotten an at-large bid anyway.
Yeah.
I think, you know how they talk about expanding the tournament?
Yeah, which is stupid in my opinion.
The only thing I'd be okay with is like if they expanded it from 68 to 72 and had 2 more two more first 4 games, and the 4 bids went to 1 seeds from the regular season that didn't win their conference tournament. The top 4 1 seeds. The top 4 like regular season conference winners.
Yeah.
So, like, if Drake lost today, you know, and didn't make it through at large, right, they'd get one of those 4 spots.
Yeah.
And just have, you know, the last 4 at larges, each one plays one of the top 4 regular season conference championships that didn't win their conference tournament and didn't make it to the at large. Like, that's I'd be cool with that. I'd be cool with that. Give those teams more of an opportunity. Couple more games, a little more revenue. Yeah. Anything beyond that is too much. Too much. Anyway. Apparently Justin Turner called out the Mariners organization. Yeah, he did, but it's stuff that players have kind of said before, and it's stuff that is common knowledge that our ownership is extremely, extremely cheap.
54%. That's all.
Yeah, and are aim to win 54% of their games. The Niners are pulling back their pocketbooks. At least you could say they spent, though, but now they're going down the cheaper route, and we know the Blazers. I wish they'd go the cheaper route with their payroll.
What are you talking about,
right
Tori? We're going to pair the Bosa brothers together.
Oh, God. Yeah, we need to get younger, though, right? That's what they said.
Get more.
I'm having deja vu. Yeah, we need to get younger. And then they go get Joey Bosa.
We want the all-time best IR team.
For real. Yeah, anyway. Yeah, it's a mess. At least baseball season starts soon, and maybe the Mariners win their division this year. If they just, like, overachieve at the plate. I don't know. At least the Blazers are on the way up. I can't say that about any other teams right now. Can't say that about the Niners. Can't say that about the Mariners. Can't say that about Gonzaga. Blazers might be my best team in 2 years. It's crazy. Anyway, we'll be live again tomorrow. Back to back. Anything else, sir?
Well, thanks everyone for watching. Hope you had a great weekend. Hope to see you on those streams tomorrow.
Yep, 2 streams tomorrow. One on the second channel. We'll pick the day's games. Blazers Uprise podcast. Go subscribe. Come hang out with us on that second channel tomorrow. And then we'll have the postgame after the Blazers take on the Warriors on the road because, 7-game road trip, come home for a game? Nah, you got to go back on the road on the second night of a back-to-back for some reason. So we'll have you covered with that recap after the Blazers take on the Warriors. Can they beat a team above 500? We'll see. Maybe they can gain a game finally on the 10th seed. Anyway, have a good rest of your night. Shop at US. See you tomorrow. Until then, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.